Hey guys, it's Madeline. This is my language and cultural contact presentation number 2. So this week the activities I used for contact hours were I used Medline Plus for 2 hours, and I also watched 2 Spanish documentaries, which one was Mala Mala, and that was 2 hours long, and the other one was Belas de Noche, which was also 2 hours long. So on Medline Plus, I read some articles about Americans and how they're not as active as they should be and how they need to be more active. Otherwise, they're gonna get like heart disease. And it just talks about like how to reduce your uh, the risk of heart disease and how to control your weight and stuff. So some of the words I learned while reading these articles were um, estadounidenses, which is Americans, and habitualmente, which is habitually, and fisca, which is physical. And then 2 sayings I learned were controlar su peso, which is control your weight, and the other one is reducir el risco de enfermedades del corazón, which is to reduce the risk of your heart disease. This had to do with like health and just exercise, and it was just kind of comparing it to Americans and like Spanish culturals about how they're like so much more like active than we are, and we just need to like step it up. Okay, so this first Spanish documentary I watched was Mala Mala, and it's about transgender women, and it is filmed in like Puerto Rico, and they're just walking in the streets and in the clubs, and they just like live the life of like trans women, and their like transition had been like really difficult, so they kind of explained like how they got there and like what happened with their family and like how their families took it. So the words I learned were transgénero, which is transgender, and then identidad de género, which is gender identity, and then transición, which is transition, and then nacida una niña, which is born a girl, and then nacida un niño, which is born a boy. And this just talks about like trans women and their family, and they just explain how they got to be transgender and like why they wanted to be transgender, and they have like the same reasons as like people in America for wanting to be like transgender. It's like not any different. The other Spanish documentary I watched was Belas de la Noche, and this documentary was about like in the 1970s and the 1980s when it was in like the disco era, and the clubs were just like filled with like women, and like it had to do with like showgirls, and like they were just dancers and like how they got to be like dancers and what they did, and then it focused mainly on one girl, which was like Maria Jose, and she was like the main character, and she was an exotic dancer, and it was basically about how she searched for love and adoration on the stage. So some of the words I learned were bailarin, which is dancer, exotico, which is exotic, el centro nocturno, which is nightclub, and then escenario, which is stage, and then choristas, which is showgirls, and then amor, which is love. And it just like talks about like the dance family, and they're like their dances are like completely different to ours. So like their disco era was way different compared to ours, just like their dance moves and everything. Like America and the Spanish have very different dance cultures. overall, this was my favorite language contact presentation that I've done because I actually learned a lot more than I did in the first one. And I think I benefited more from this one. And it was just like fun to watch the Spanish documentaries, and I learned a lot from this one. Bye!